My family gave my seat to my brother's wife at tea dinner, saying, "You don't belong." I left quietly until Grandpa called me back with the words, "Actually, she owns this house. Move over, Emily. That seat's not for you." The words hit me harder than a slap. I froze halfway to my chair, the one I'd sat in every family dinner for years, right next to my grandfather. My mother's hand brushed across the back of the chair, her smile sharp as glass. "It's for Lauren now," she added, tilting her head toward my brother's wife. "Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin." The entire table shifted uncomfortably. Plates clinked, silverware rattled, but no one spoke up for me. My brother Daniel smirked like it was nothing. His wife Lauren gave me that pitying little smile, the kind that dripped superiority. "You don't belong there," my father muttered under his breath, sipping his wine without even looking at me. The words twisted in my chest, crushing me. Not belong in my own family. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to swallow it down. Showing emotion here would only feed them. "I see," I said quietly, gripping the strap of my purse so hard it dug into my palm. "Enjoy your dinner." I turned, heart hammering, humiliation burning my skin as I walked toward the door. Every step away from that table felt like 1,000 knives. I could hear them start to laugh, small whispers circling the table like vultures. Just as my hand touched the door handle, a voice cut through the noise. Deep, firm, commanding, Emily, Grandpa's voice. The room fell silent. Fork stopped midair, wine glasses froze inches from lips. My hand trembled against the brass handle as I turned, slightly meeting his eyes. "Come back here," he said, his face stern but his eyes blazing with something none of them understood. "Dad," my father began, but Grandpa raised one hand, silencing him instantly. "Actually," Grandpa continued, his voice echoing across the dining room, "Emily owns this house." The air shattered like glass, chairs scraped back, mouths dropped open. My brother choked on his wine, Lauren blinked rapidly, and my mother went pale. I just stood there, stunned. Heart pounding so hard it hurt. Grandpa leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. "And maybe it's time you all started treating her like the one who kept this family afloat, when none of you were looking." The silence that followed was thick enough to suffocate. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The just happened. My mother found her voice first. "Dad, that's ridiculous. You're confused." Grandpa stood slow but steady and slid a thick manila envelope from under his chair. He'd brought it on purpose. Confused, he tapped the envelope. "County records don't get confused." He beckoned me with 2 fingers. I walked back in, pulse still racing, and took the spot I'd been denied. Lauren's manicured hand hovered over the back of the chair for a second too, long before she let go, stepping aside like someone had nudged her off stage. Daniel's jaw clenched. My father stared at his glass, as if there was a trap door inside it. "Sit, Emily," Grandpa said, and his voice softened. "You won't be leaving your own table." I lowered myself into the seat. The chair felt different now. Heavy, solid, anchoring. Grandpa opened the envelope and pulled out papers, each one creasing with a crisp whisper as he set them down. "Grant deed," he said, tapping the first. "Recorded with the county on March 9th this year. Property held by the Klein Family Trust, successor trustee. Emily Klein." "What?" Daniel's voice cracked. "You put her in charge of the trust?" Grandpa didn't flinch. "No, son. I kept the house safe by doing what your parents refused to do. Pay attention." My mother let out a brittle laugh. "This is outrageous. You can't just—" "I can because I did." He slid another page forward. "Delinquent taxes paid last winter. Past due line of credit for the roof repairs brought current. Insurance reinstated after your father missed 2 payments. And see this?" He held up a bank printout with highlighted lines. "That auto-pay isn't my account." Emily set it up. Every eye at the table snapped to me like I'd suddenly grown taller. Heat flooded my cheeks, but I kept my voice even. I didn't want the house at risk. When the cancellation notice came, I called the insurer. It was 30 minutes from lapse. "You never heard her. 2 months ago, you were busy with guests." Her lips thinned. Daniel leaned forward, elbows hitting the table, pushing a bread plate into the runner. So you played hero, what? For points? To embarrass us tonight? Daniel, Grandpa warned. Don't Daniel me? He snapped, the old sibling heat radiating off him. You've always liked looking good in front of him. He jerked his chin toward Grandpa. Teacher's pet. I felt that old flicker of anger and let it pass. If I'd wanted to embarrass you, I would have spoken up when Mom told me to move. Lauren cleared her throat delicately. We were trying to make it easier for seating. That's all. It wasn't personal, Emily. Lauren, Grandpa said, voice still calm but edged with steel. You've been telling folks at your club the house would hit the market this fall. She blinked. I what? No, I don't, insult me. Half this town has known this address since before your real estate blog was a thing. Word gets around. Your words get around. He picked up another sheet, and your agent friend sent me a note unsolicited about staging. A blush rose to Lauren's ears. Daniel's glare pivoted to her. You did what? I was trying to help, she said quickly. Your parents are overwhelmed and the market's good. This is my home, Grandpa said, and the room stilled again. He looked at me. And she's the one who kept it that way, not you, not any of you. My father finally looked up. Why her? Because I spent nights on hold with the bank, because I showed up when no one else did. I didn't say it. Grandpa did. When I had my procedure last year, who drove me? Emily, he said. When the porch steps started sinking and the contractor overcharged us, who negotiated? Emily. When the leak ruined the hallway wall, who tore up their weekend and came with a dehumidifier from her apartment? Emily. He paused, letting the list land. When the mortgage lender sent a compliance letter, your wife tossed in the recycling, who dug it out? Emily. My mother's fork scraped porcelain. Enough, Dad. He didn't stop. She's not loud about what she does. That's the difference. Silence held. Grandpa slid me a set of keys I already had. The ones I'd been carrying since college. They felt heavier tonight. You decide who sits where in this house? He said. You decide who respects it, starting now. I looked down the length of the table. The faces were a study in denial, embarrassment, fury. My heart thudded. A younger me would have tried to make everyone comfortable. Apologized, smoothed it over. I wasn't younger. I'm not kicking anyone out, I said, and saw a few shoulders loosen. But the insults stop. The threats to sell stop. If you don't respect me, you can't stay. Lauren blinked as if weighing the optics. We respect you. You called me temporary, I said evenly. Last week. Her mouth opened, closed. Daniel shifted. What's the plan then, owner? He said, half sneer, half challenge. Going to flip the dining room and post it on Instagram? I'm going to keep the roof over Grandpa's head. I said, I'm going to fix the plumbing that's been knocking for 3 months. I'm going to lock the liquor cabinet so strangers from your poker nights stop stumbling through here at 2 a.m., and I'm going to change the alarm code tomorrow. My mother's eyes flashed. You wouldn't. I already did, I said, keeping my tone gentle. I'll text you the new one tonight. Grandpa's mouth twitched at the corner. Pride. It hit me like a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Daniel pushed back his chair hard enough that the legs screeched against the floor. This is a joke, he said, looking to Dad for backup that didn't come. We're letting her play sheriff of the dining room because she paid a couple bills. Grandpa's gaze didn't waver because she saved what you were too busy to notice you were losing. My father exhaled long and tight. What does this mean for the estate? It means what it says, Grandpa replied. The trust gives her authority. There's a care plan. One she drafted with me that keeps me here, keeps the house intact, and keeps all of you from carving it up like a roast while I'm still breathing. I took a breath, felt the edges of the room sharpen. Dinner's cold, I said softer. Can we sit down and eat, or does anyone need to leave before we do? No one moved. Then one by one chairs eased back toward the table. My mother adjusted silverware needlessly. Lauren smoothed her napkin. Daniel sat last, defiance still humming off him. Conversation when it returned was clipped and careful like people crossing a creek on slick stones. Grandpa asked me about the appointment with the contractor. I answered. He told a story about the year the power went out on Thanksgiving, and we grilled the turkey in the driveway. People laughed real for a second. Halfway through, Daniel tossed his fork onto the plate. So we're just not going to talk about the fact that she blindsided us, he said, voice pitched to cut. I met a stare. I didn't blindside anyone. I asked for help. I said, I asked you 3 times to move your car so the plumber could park. I asked Mom to keep the contractor list. I asked Dad to answer the insurance call. No one did. I learned not to ask. I fixed it. Wow. He said, slow clap in his tone. Congratulations. Dan, Lauren hissed. No, let him. I said my hands were steady now. Say whatever you need to say, but we're not dumping this house for a down payment on your next rental. I'm done apologizing for protecting something that doesn't come back once it's gone. He stood again, the chair legs scraping. I don't have to sit here and get lectured. You don't, I said. You also don't get to show up with a photographer and stage Grandpa's bedroom like a hotel. That ends now. Grandpa placed his palm on the table, veins like blue ropes under papery skin. Daniel, stay. He said, quiet and firm, eat. Daniel didn't move for a long beat. Then he sat, the air loosened by a degree. When the plates were cleared, I gathered the paperwork and slid it back into the envelope. Grandpa handed me a pen on the back of a receipt that had fallen out a hardware store, my handwriting. I wrote 3 times respect safety boundaries. I slid it toward the middle of the table. These are my rules, I said simply, for this house, for me. My mother glanced at the words, something complicated flickering across her face. Pride trying to push past stubbornness and shame. She looked at Grandpa, then at me. What happens next? She asked, voice smaller than I'm used to hearing it. I stood, the keys cool in my fist. Tomorrow morning at 10. I said, the contractor's coming to check the back deck, be here or don't, but if you are here, come ready to help. I felt the room absorb it, the unfamiliar shape of me not bending. As I reached the archway, Grandpa's voice followed, once more, gentler now. One more thing, he said, eyes warm. Emily, bring the blue box from my dresser after dinner. My heart dipped. The blue box? He hadn't opened that in years. What's in it? Daniel said, suspicion rekindling. Grandpa smiled, a private kind of smile I'd only seen a handful of times in my life. The next part of this story, he said, and a truth your sisters earned the right to hear first. The dining room emptied faster than I expected. Plates scraped, chairs dragged, and excuses floated in the air. Lauren claiming she had emails to send. My mother muttering about needing aspirin, Daniel storming out without so much as a goodbye. Only Grandpa and I stayed behind. He sipped his coffee slowly, watching me in that way that always made me feel both exposed and seen. You handled yourself. He said finally. I don't feel like I did. I admitted, my voice low. I feel wrecked, like they all saw me as an intruder in my own skin. Grandpa's lips twitched. That's because they did. You being strong doesn't make them comfortable. You make them face what they've avoided. And Emily, he leaned closer. You've always been stronger than they wanted you to be. I stared at the flickering the house. Was that really necessary? Couldn't it have waited? No, he said firmly. You were about to walk out the door with their words carved into your back. That's not what I raised you for. You needed to know this was yours before you forgot it. The blue box appeared in my memory. My chest tightened. You mentioned something earlier. The box? Grandpa nodded. Bring it here. I slipped into his bedroom. The air carried that mix of cedar polish and his aftershave. On the dresser sat the box, dusty, worn, locked with a simple brass clasp. When I carried it back, my hands trembled. He took it, set it between us, and opened it. Inside lay yellowed letters, a stack of photographs, and a folded legal document. My throat dried. These, Grandpa said, lifting the photos, are from when your grandmother and I bought this place. It wasn't much then, just walls and hope, but every nail meant something. She wanted it passed down to the one who understood home as more than property. He slid the folded document toward me. My eyes caught the heading. Amendment to Family Trust. My name printed bold underneath. This isn't about cutting anyone else out. Grandpa said, it's about recognizing who showed up. The law needed a successor trustee. I picked the one person who never treated me like a burden. Emotion hit my throat so hard I had to bite it back. They're going to hate me for this. They already decided to. He said simply, might as well give them a reason that matters. The front door slammed upstairs. Daniel's heavy footsteps pacing, then silence. I exhaled sharply. He won't let this go. No. Grandpa agreed. But you're not here to manage his anger. You're here to protect what protects us. I closed the document, sliding it back. My hands steadied. Then I'll do it, no matter what they throw at me. Grandpa smiled, lines deepening around his eyes. That's my girl. And knock at the door startled us both. It was late. Far too late for a neighborly drop-in. I rose, heart quickening, and opened it. Daniel stood there. Face hard, eyes sharp. He didn't bother stepping inside. You think this is over? He hissed. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You think you can sit at that table and throw rules like you're the sheriff of this place? I gripped the doorframe. It's not about rules, Daniel. It's about respect. His jaw worked like he was chewing on rage. You'll regret this. Grandpa's voice called from behind me. But thunderous. She won't. But you might if you forget who holds the keys. Daniel's glare shifted past me to Grandpa. And for the first time that night, I saw something flicker in him. Not anger, but fear. He turned sharply and walked off into the night. I shut the door slowly, my pulse still racing. Grandpa exhaled. This was just the beginning, he said quietly. Tomorrow they'll test you harder. And deep down, I knew he was right. The morning after felt heavier than the night before. The house creaked like it knew the storm brewing inside. I barely slept. Daniel's threat kept replaying, and every footstep outside made me think he'd come back. At 10 sharp, the contractor knocked. I led him to the back deck, clipboard in his hand as he inspected the sagging boards. Grandpa sat nearby, bundled in a cardigan, watching like a silent witness. Halfway through, tires crunched the gravel. My stomach dropped. Daniel's SUV, and behind it, my parents said, "Dan." They piled out like soldiers on a mission. My mother's lips pressed thin. My father's jaw set. And Daniel looked like he hadn't slept at all. You had no right. Daniel barked the second he stepped into the yard, changing alarm codes. Bringing strangers here without telling us, acting like some queen. I faced him head on. I told you last night, this house needs repairs. I'm not waiting for permission to keep Grandpa safe. My mother cut in, her voice sharp. Emily, enough. You're tearing this family apart with your need to control everything. I almost laughed. Control. I'm holding together what you were willing to let rot. Don't twist that into villainy. The contractor shifted awkwardly. I'll come back later, he murmured, escaping through the gate. Daniel took a step closer. You think paperwork makes you powerful? You're nothing without us. You'll crack the second you're alone. My heart pounded, but I didn't back up. Funny, I said softly. I've been alone most of my life in this family. And somehow, I didn't crack. I built the silence that followed was sharp enough to cut skin. My father finally spoke, his tone low but laced with bitterness. You embarrassed us. Do you have any idea how it felt sitting there while Dad paraded you as the hero? Do you know what people will say? Grandpa's voice boomed behind me. Enough. They turned. He struggled to his feet, leaning on his cane, but his presence filled the yard. What people will say, he thundered, is that when this house was falling apart, Emily saved it. While you were worried about appearances, she was paying the bills you ignored. Daniel's face flushed red. She turned you against us. Grandpa shook his head. You did that yourselves when you chose pride over responsibility. I felt a strength rise in me when I didn't know I had. I stepped forward, closing the distance between me and my brother. This isn't about me versus you, Daniel. It's about a home that deserves respect. If you can't give that, then you don't belong here. His eyes widened at my own words echoing back at him. He opened his mouth, then shut it, rage choking his response. My mother's voice softened, almost breaking. Emily, please, you don't understand this house. It's tied to everything. Our reputation, I snapped. Do you even hear yourself? Grandpa's health, this home's safety, my sanity, those don't matter, but the neighbors' whispers do. Tears stung my eyes, but my voice stayed strong. I'm done being invisible so you can keep your image polished. I won't apologize for doing what you wouldn't. The air thickened. For once, none of them had an answer. Grandpa stepped beside me, placing his trembling hand on mine. I made my choice clear last night. This house is Emily's responsibility now. If you can't live with that, the door is open. But stop tearing at her like wolves. Silence, stretched. My father finally looked down, shame flickering across his features. My mother turned away, eyes glistening. And Daniel? Daniel stormed off again, his car roaring out of the driveway, gravel spitting. The quiet that followed was almost holy. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Did I? Do the right thing, I whispered. Grandpa squeezed my hand. Right and easy rarely meet. But tonight, you'll sleep without that weight on your chest. That's how you'll know. For the first time in years, I believed him. As the sun set that evening, I stood on the porch, the house warm behind me. It wasn't just wooden walls anymore. It was mine, not as property, but as proof. Proof that I could stand, even when they tried to erase me, and maybe, just maybe, they'd learn respect the hard way. But even if they didn't, I was finally done begging for it,